I solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of host of Mickey's Round Table and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the legacy of Walter Elias Disney. Hi there, and welcome to another Mickey's Roundtable adventure where we explore everything Disney, one themed adventure at a time. For this adventure, I headed over to Walt Disney World here in Florida for President's Day 2025. You're not going to want to miss this very reverent Mickey's Roundtable adventure. My interest and fascination with the presidency began at a young age. When I was in elementary school, we got to order some books, and I still have those books today. The Arrow Book of Presidents and The Last Cow on the White House Lawn, a book of presidential trivia. Now, another young man that had an interest in the presidency, more specifically Abraham Lincoln, was Walt Disney. When he was in elementary school, he dressed up as President Lincoln and recited the Gettysburg Address to his classmates. Little did anybody know it at the time, but there was another direct connection between Walt Disney and a president of the United States, a future president of the United States. At the dedication ceremony for Disneyland in 1955, one of the co-hosts for the TV program was none other than future President Ronald Reagan.
Main Street ready for the official opening ceremony. Walt Disney will step forward to read the dedication of Disneyland.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Then in 1959, another future president, only vice president at the time, Richard Nixon, participated in the dedication ceremony of the Disneyland monorail.
Take it away.
To open the first operative monorail system in America, it is our good fortune to have our friend and fellow Californian, the Vice President of the United States, Mr. Richard Nixon, and his charming family.
For the 1964 New York World's Fair, Walt Disney's Imagineers created the very first human audio animatronic in the form of President Lincoln. They created the show Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. After the fair, that attraction went to Disneyland. It's still there today. Within just a few years of Walt Disney World opening, now President Richard Nixon, no longer Vice President, paid a visit to the Contemporary Resort and gave a press conference where he made his infamous statement.
People have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Yeah, that's right. That's where that took place. You can still visit that today. That's where I started my President's Day visit to Walt Disney World at the Contemporary Resort and the Ballroom of the Americas before heading on over to Magic Kingdom. If you look at some of the early maps of Disneyland, I have a copy of one up here, you will find off of Main Street, USA, a Liberty Street. In Liberty Street, on Liberty Street, was an attraction, the Hall of Presidents. It never got built at Disneyland. When Walt Disney World was built and the Magic Kingdom was built and opened in 1971, it featured not a Liberty Street, but Liberty Square, featuring a Hall of Presidents. As you enter the Hall of Presidents, you enter what they call the Rotunda. In the center of the Rotunda is the Great Seal of the United States. There are presidential portraits: George Washington, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln. There are also display cases. In those display cases are actual presidential artifacts on loan from various presidential libraries and museums around the country. Really cool, especially if you are like me and you are interested in presidential history. The 22-minute show talks about the history of the presidency and how various presidents have shaped the country and led the country through various difficult times in our nation's history.
This program is dedicated to the memory of Walt Disney. In 1971, his love for America inspired the creation of the Hall of Presidents, a place to celebrate the optimism and goodwill he saw at the heart of the American story. Walt's vision was to honor the nation by honoring the American presidency.
1783, and the smoke is clearing in the wake of the Revolutionary War. We, the people. This is a new idea, an American idea. The idea of a president who pushes west. Will new states be slave or free? The question produces bitter conflict. The issue rocks the election of 1860 and brings Abraham Lincoln onto the national stage.
Fourscore and 7 years ago.
This is an emergency as serious as war itself.
And yet, in one sense, what we need most from our presidents has never changed. A guiding vision that calls forth the best that America can be.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The end of the show features a roll call. Walt Disney had built the audio animatronic of Abraham Lincoln for his Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln show. This show doesn't just feature Abraham Lincoln, it features all of them. Every president that has served in office is featured on the stage all at the same time, and they do a roll call of every single individual.
Ladies and gentlemen, the presidents of the United States of America. George Washington. John Adams.
When Walt Disney World and Magic Kingdom opened in 1971, Richard Nixon was the sitting president at the time. He was the 37th president of the United States. So just a minute ago, I mentioned President Richard Nixon giving a press conference at Walt Disney World at the Contemporary. Not long after that, he gave another speech, made another statement, this time from the White House.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president.
Yeah, President Nixon resigned, Vice President Ford became President Ford. All of a sudden, the Hall of Presidents at Walt Disney World, they were off. They needed to add a new animatronic, a new president to the show. It shut down and was refurbished, and President Gerald Ford was then added to the lineup of presidents during the presidential roll call at the end of the show. Since President Ford was added to the Hall of Presidents, 8 other individuals have been added to the Hall of Presidents. Each time, everything has to shut down for a brief period of time, and then it reopens again with the new president there on the stage with all of the others. This time, well, it's a little different and a little bit the same all at the same time. So we have, for the second time in American history, a president who is serving a second term non-consecutively. Yeah, this has happened before in American history. Grover Cleveland served as president. He took a term off, and then he became president again. Likewise, President Trump served a term in office. President Biden then succeeded him, and then President Trump now was reelected and just inaugurated into office. The show is being closed down so they can not necessarily add a new animatronic, but move them around and change the show to feature President Trump as the current president. How are they going to do this? What are they going to do? What can they do? I don't know. They're not saying, but I have my guess of what I would do, what should be done based on what the show has been. Because remember, we already have a president on stage who served 2 non-consecutive terms. What did they do for Grover Cleveland? What can they do with President Trump? When they do the presidential roll call, they start George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, so on and so forth. When they get to Grover Cleveland, they don't introduce Grover Cleveland and then the next president, and then introduce Grover Cleveland again. They just introduce him as an individual the first time.
Grover Cleveland, Benjamin Harrison, William McKinley.
So when they introduce President Trump and then President Biden, then do they introduce President Trump again?
Barack Obama, Donald Trump.
They don't need to. The way the show currently is, or currently was most recently, and I believe this is the way it's been in the past, the narrator comes on and says,
and now we come to the present. Once again,
then the current president recites the oath of office, and they basically introduce themselves.
But it was with the confidence of my fellow citizens that I took an oath. 35 simple words that have been repeated by every American president throughout history. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
So you can do the exact same thing, they can do the exact same thing, but I think as far as how they are introduced, I think that's probably the most likely scenario. With the Hall of Presidents closed for its refurbishment, don't worry, you can still get your presidential history fix, your presidential audio animatronic fix at Walt Disney World and even at Magic Kingdom. From the Hall of Presidents, I headed out to Tom Sawyer Island. It's still there for the moment. And out at Fort Langhorne, there's a little blacksmith shop. And if you look in there, there's a tall gentleman working at the forge, doing whatever he's doing. You can't see his face, but he's a tall gentleman. And I've been told that's Abraham Lincoln. So what Imagineers will do, what the Disney company will do, is they'll reuse molds for the faces of different animatronics in different situations, different rides, different attractions. If you want to get your presidential audio animatronic fix, there is another Abraham Lincoln audio animatronic there at Walt Disney World. This one you know is Abraham Lincoln because you can see his face. Go over to Hollywood Studios and Walt Disney Presents. Inside that little museum before you enter the theater, there is, I believe, the original audio animatronic from the New York World's Fair of Abraham Lincoln. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool history, Disney history, and a connection to American and presidential history as well. From Hollywood Studios, I headed over to Epcot and the American Adventure Pavilion. Currently, they have on display there a direct connection to presidential history and an American president. They have artwork painted by President George W. Bush. They are portraits that he painted of various servicemen and women, wounded warriors, and honoring them. In the rotunda there at the American Adventure Pavilion, they will have performing Voices of Liberty. It was kind of cool. They did a medley of the Armed Forces songs. You know, you got Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and most recently added was the Space Force. This is the first time I've ever heard the song for them.
We're the mighty watchful of the Space Force. The invincible front line, war fighters brave and true.
I talked about the American Adventure show in my last video. This video, I'm going to talk about it again, but in the context of presidents, animatronic presidents that appear in the show. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Now, he's not president in the show. He's pre-presidency, pre-U.S. government, pre-United States. He's busy writing the Declaration of Independence. And then there's Theodore Roosevelt at Yosemite National Park, talking about our national parks and preserving our natural wonders. Then there's the other Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief
that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Then the end of the program, there is a montage video film, and multiple different presidents are featured there as well.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
From the American Adventure, I headed elsewhere at Epcot. If you watch my Hidden Mickey video at Epcot, I decided to skip Spaceship Earth because I was tired and whatever. This adventure, I visited Spaceship Earth again, not for Hidden Mickeys, but for Hidden Presidents. Remember how I mentioned Abraham Lincoln at the Fort Langhorne at Tom Sawyer Island? They reused the face molds for various animatronics, including presidents of the United States. They changed their hair, add a beard, take a beard off. They're wearing different costumes. I think that I have all of the animatronics that are in Spaceship Earth that are presidents changed into different roles. They look completely different. You're not moving through there super fast, but you're moving through fast enough where it's like, wait, that was Dwight Eisenhower? Yeah, that was Dwight Eisenhower. Yeah, so apparently that's Dwight Eisenhower playing the mandolin. Let me check my notes here. I'm not going to do these in order, and the video that I have may not be the right guy. I may have misconstrued. I think they mean that guy. I got this list. I don't remember exactly where. Found it on the internet, so it has to be true. But anyway, so you got Ike playing the mandolin. I've got John Adams as a monk. James Buchanan plays the part of Gutenberg, the printing press guy. Andrew Jackson likewise is a printer. William Howard Taft, he wasn't just President of the United States, he wasn't just Chief Justice of the United States. Apparently he was also an Egyptian priest in a previous life. Theodore Roosevelt takes the role of a Roman soldier. Zachary Taylor, a Roman centurion. So apparently the Disney company thinks that Zachary Taylor outranks Theodore Roosevelt. Then you have John Tyler. He's playing the part of a Turkish man. Franklin Pierce as a scholar. Those are the presidents that I have in my list. There could be others. Maybe some of these are not really presidents and this was wrong. I'm not sure, 100% sure, but I do know that some of them actually are former presidents, presidential animatronic molds that were repurposed for Spaceship Earth. So that's going to wrap up this Mickey's Roundtable President's Day Adventure at Walt Disney World video. Before I do go, I wanted to show off my snazzy tie. I got this at the Theodore Roosevelt Inaugural National Historic Site in Buffalo, New York. That is where Vice President Roosevelt traveled to and took the oath of office, becoming President of the United States upon the assassination and death of President William McKinley. It's got signatures from every president, from George Washington all the way through Obama. That's when I bought the tie. He was in office. Anyway, if you like my tie, if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, or you could visit my sponsor. Okay, sorry, I don't have a sponsor. This isn't official. But if I did have a sponsor, I'd be touting the fantastic Ozell Soda Company. They have 6 different flavors. This one happens to be called Grape Moments. Grape soda, and it is, of course, themed to the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln attraction there at Disneyland. I love soda in glass bottles, and I love history and Disney history. The Ozell Soda Company, proceeds from the sale of their soda goes to support the Walt Disney Birthplace Museum there in Chicago. So, yeah, not an official sponsor, but I'm going to plug their product anyway. So, until next time, we'll see you real soon.
trolley. You're on the trolley. Now you're on the trolley.